So I grew up in Calgary, Alberta. By the age of 3, I had 3 different men in my life that I called dad. At a very young age, I learned that loving somebody was dangerous. I started just having this void inside me, this emptiness that I carried around with me everywhere I go, and and it started coming out in different forms of delinquency. When I was in school, I started acting out, and I just at a young age, I started to hate myself. Around the age of 13 is when I started getting arrested. But at 15 years old, I finally crossed the line a little bit too much, and they told me that I was getting sent to Calgary Young Offender Center. And I remember the first time walking in there, I didn't even know it was prison. And so when I was in there, that was when I started meeting people that were gang members. And these guys treated me good. I spent my whole life being bullied, spent my whole life clawing my way, desperate for people to show me affection, desperate for people to treat me as their equals, and I never got it. And when I was in prison, all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, I got guys that were the cool guys in the institution that liked me, that wanted to be my friend, that wanted to be around me. And so I decided that I would do anything for them. Everything that comes along with gang life followed me getting out of prison. Getting involved in narcotic trafficking, I was getting involved in home invasions, I was getting involved in kidnappings, all kinds of stuff. The darkest day of my life took place on June 6, 2006, which is, oddly enough, 666. My friend and I took the life of my rival in a drug turf war. It was a very evil day. The darkness that took my life over that day was all-consuming. Something happened inside of me after murdering someone that just shut off completely. At 22 years old, got charged with first-degree murder. I remember walking in to a maximum security unit in the Calgary remand. I was looking at 25 years, spending the rest of my life in jail. My heart just went black. Every time I went into a cell with somebody, it was always coupled with a massive statement, and that's that I wanted to move up within the ranks of the gang. And I did. Within 6 months, I was the highest ranking member in the institution. At this time, we were going to war with the largest prison gang in Alberta. So it was literally a 24/7 gladiator school and knife fight. I ended up finding myself with a supermax security classification. In a solitary confinement, you get belly shackles, private escorts to court. When I went to Edmonton Max is one of the most violent prisons in the country. It's just 150 inmates, just violent, brutal killers, everybody. And so any weakness you have to just destroy before you get there, because those guys they're well-versed in people reading, and they can smell fear a mile away. When you walk into that place, you gotta walk in there void of emotion, otherwise it'll eat you alive. So my first-degree murder charge got dropped in 2009. I ended up pleading out to manslaughter with a firearm. And I got out after 6.5 years. When I got out of prison, I decided I wanted to try and put that life behind me. So I ended up getting into car sales. I made lots of money, but at 3.5 years sober, I wanted to die every single day. I started using cocaine again. My goal was just to stay high until I died. I started building a cocaine trafficking operation. What started off as just a few hundred people turned into thousands of customers. And I went from just doing it by myself to having, dozens of people working for me. My habit worsened, rapidly to about $1,500 worth of cocaine a day. I was only sleeping every 6 days. It was deep, it was dark, it sucked. Yeah, so one day I'm at my house, and this girl comes in, and she was just a customer of mine. She wanted to show me this painting, and it was painted by a 7-year-old girl named Akiana Krameric. And the claim was that Jesus taught her to paint. And there's one portrait specifically called the Prince of Peace. And I remember looking at this painting, and I remember looking into his eyes. And so, for the first time in my life, I believed that God was real. But in order for me to have any kind of relationship with him, I would have to get clean. I would have to get sober. I would have to separate myself from my friends. I would have to quit doing and selling drugs. Like me. It would have to be me to do everything. And yeah, what would Jesus want with someone like me? Up to this point in my life, I was a convicted killer. I was a diagnosed sociopath. I was a gang member. I was a drug dealer. What would Jesus want with me? On January 4th, 2017, I decided I was gonna take my life that day. I remember getting a butcher knife out of the drawer, going upstairs to my room, closing my door behind me. I was just so filled with pain and shame and guilt and hurt that, it felt like the world was on my shoulders. Yeah, I remember getting the knife deep into my wrist and knowing that it was deep enough to get the job done. All I had to do was pull it back and it was all gonna be over. And as I'm sitting on the floor with a knife in my hand, with blood all over me. And as I'm sitting on the floor heaving, looking at the ceiling, I'm hearing the words, "It's over, it's over. Your suffering's come to an end." And I had never read a Bible. I've never been in a church. I knew, without a doubt, that Jesus Christ was talking to me and telling me that my suffering had come to an end. And my addiction was gone. I went from $1,500 of cocaine a day to not even craving. But I was going through a rough detox, but I found myself in pursuit of Jesus. I knew that he saved me, but I didn't know if I was a Protestant. I didn't know if I was a Catholic. I didn't know if I was some kind of witness. I had no idea what I was or where to go. Where do people go that love Jesus? And I'm like, Akiana Krameric. I'm like, what is she? And I Googled, and it turns out she's a Christian. And I'm like, hold on. I'm like, well, that means I'm a Christian. And then I'm like, where do Christians go to church? and it turns out my uncle's a Christian. So I'm like, okay, so where does he go to church when he's in town? And it turns out he goes to the Black Diamond Gospel Chapel. So I went to the Black Diamond Gospel Chapel on that Sunday. And at the end of the service, I get up and I go running out, and the pastor chases me down, and he puts the Bible in my hands. And I remember when he put this book in my hands, I knew that every single word in this book was as good as gold, that this book was perfect. And I have had all kinds of money, I've had all kinds of narcotics, I have all kinds of things in my hands that I thought would make me feel good. I knew in that moment that I had never possessed something so priceless in my entire life. I remember just starting to leaf through the pages of this book. God really started speaking to me. And as the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, I started to get better. My mind started to clear. I started to come out of it. And it was all Jesus. There was no amount of will. Nothing I could have done could have saved me from the darkness I was in. I was so far gone that there was nothing that could have brought me back. Only God can bring a dead man back to life. For a long time, I didn't know if I believed in God, but I believed that if there was a God, that he looked at me with disgust. You know, that I was just an abomination. You know, and why would he ever want a relationship with someone as evil as me? And I know today that he loves me the same today as he did yesterday and as he will tomorrow.